Hello, and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer. And today we are talking about financial services. And so I have in office with me Joe Puglia. He is with EKS&H. How are you, Joe?
I'm good this morning. How are you, Alex?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking. So we're going to start with your background a little bit, right? You have an interesting background for how you ended up at EKS&H. So let's go into that.
Certainly. I've graduated with a bachelor's degree in industrial engineering from New Jersey Institute of Technology, all the way back in Newark, New Jersey.
There you go.
Also have a master's degree in management engineering from the same school. Followed right up one after the other. Also hold an MBA from Rollins College in Winter Park, Florida. So I've done the engineering, and I've got some of the financial and accounting background as well. From a job standpoint, I've worked for two big Fortune 500 companies, Coca-Cola Company, who everyone knows.
Yeah.
On Avery Dennison, you know, hello, my name is sticker. The company that makes all those stickers and labels called Avery Dennison. I started out of school there as a junior industrial engineer, and then got a work-study job. Then they paid me full-time. So my senior year of college, I had a job in February. So all my friends were struggling. I was doing pretty well. So I spent a number of years there. Then I left there and went to the Coca-Cola Company as a plant engineer in New Jersey. Went there, worked a couple of years, moved to Florida into a $80 million fully automated citrus processing plant, the first one of its kind in the world. I was one of the project engineers and ultimately one of the project managers, and then one of the production managers there.
Now, what is a citrus production?
Orange juice. So we take oranges, squish them, squeeze them, take the peels off, and what you buy in the orange juice container is what you get.
Okay.
So everything from harvesting the oranges all the way through putting them in the package and then shipping them to the grocery stores where you pick them up. Then I became the director of operations. The citrus operations for Coke, which are in Florida, were purchased by a Brazilian processor, the largest citrus producer in the world, called Catrale Citrus Juices. I was on the buy team that actually bought the plants from Coca-Cola, and I was the director of operations to get those operations started for Catrale from Coke. Worked in the purchase, worked in the transition team, due diligence team, did a number of engineering projects there to increase the output and efficiency of the plants, improve the way they worked. Quite an interesting couple 3 years doing that. At that point, I decided I wanted to get out of just the operations side and get closer to customers and consumers. So I took a job as a beer distributor in Orlando, Florida, the 15th largest distributor in the country, as the vice president of operations.
Yeah.
There we built a brand new state-of-the-art distribution center, went from a paper system to a fully paperless kind of semi-automatic electronic system. So we did it over about a 7-year period. That company was eventually sold, at which point I came here to Colorado to work for a company called Trinidad Benham that packages dry rice, beans, and popcorn, private label, so Walmart, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And was the director of operations for the Western operations, so all the plants, so about 6 or 8 plants in the Western part of the half United States. I also managed customer service, did logistics, as well as managed the quality system program there. So kind of varied background, mostly in food operations, obviously P&L responsibility, so a lot of understanding the finances and the costs and the accounting.
Okay, so that's where your background comes in for EKS&H.
Correct. So when last 2 summers ago, I decided I wanted to do something different. I've been in and out of operations my whole life, and I was a client actually of EKS&H. Met one of the partners and talked about getting a consulting group going, and if I'd be interested in helping. And I decided, I was at a point in my life where I could make the change, and so I did. And so it's been 2 years.
Nice. Okay. So how is life different from the East Coast to Colorado?
A little slower.
Okay.
A lot drier.
Yes.
Florida's a lot hotter and a lot more bugs than here. I like the no bugs thing.
Yeah.
I do enjoy snowboarding, so this has been a kind of a nice change. I like it, actually. The West, I think I've never been out here, so the 8 years I've been here has been quite interesting.
Yeah, I've been here for 8 years myself as well. I'm moving from the East in Kentucky, and so I can appreciate that a little bit, especially the no bugs. I'm with you on that,
I like
for
the no
sure.
bugs.
So let's talk a little bit about this consulting that you've offered for EKS&H. What do you have on the books right now, and what does that mean for EKS&H customers?
Well, one of the new practices we're getting started is we're getting started with a product we call Analytics as a Service. So it kind of grows off our software advisory group. So we had a software advisory group, and we would help clients select and implement ERPs, WMS software systems, enterprise type systems. And often they'd put these systems in and they'd collect a lot of data, and because we have small, medium-sized clients, they didn't really know what to do with it. They had lots of data. They just didn't know what to do with it, how to use to run the business. So, we came up with this idea of this analytics as a service kind of thing. So what we're trying to do is help these small, medium-sized clients find ways to use their data to make their business better, whether it's through, finding customer patterns or logistical patterns or quality patterns, just using the data to make better decisions and to improve their businesses.
Okay, so by data, you mean every time a customer has left a review, every time a customer has come to visit? What exactly?
Yeah. So the world's full of data these days.
Yes.
Right? Every minute you're collecting, whether you're a production company, and you're collecting how much the machine made, how much each operator ran, how many customers buy a certain color, how many buy a certain shape, how many buy at a certain price point. There's lots and lots of data, and you go on these clients and they've got spreadsheets and databases, but the data doesn't come together, so they can't connect maybe something a customer's doing with something they did on the production side. So it's trying to get all that data to work together to make better decisions.
Okay. So let's talk pricing. You mentioned that you work with small to medium businesses. Mm-hmm. So we're talking probably locally owned mom and pop places.
Yeah, I mean, as small as 5 million up to probably 100 million.
Okay.
And in today's, that's small to mid-size.
Okay.
Generally, I think our biggest client I've worked with here is probably 100 employees.
Okay.
And down. So it's, generally, I shouldn't say generally startups, generally newer companies. The general is they have 1 or 2 really big customers that get them going, and now they're trying to expand or find other ways to make additional money or to improve their business or grow their business. So they're always interested in new ways to do it. One of the challenges is not a lot of money to spend. So they're not going to go out and hire a business analyst and somebody to do data analytics for them and pay all the money for these employees they're going to use once or twice, maybe a year, maybe every 2 years. So there was an opportunity to provide this service kind of as a rental, kind of setup. So
a little bit like what's the word that I'm looking for? On retainer, if you will.
Yeah, a little bit. That's one option. One way we looked at is retainer. One is, a la carte. As you use it, you pay for it. Because some of the software packages that do this data analytics, they're really expensive. So if you're a smaller company, you're not going to spend that kind of money. You could be you could be easy 6 figures. You're not careful, and then employees to run it. So to provide the service that they can use when they need it and not pay for when they don't. Plus, they get my expertise, my team's expertise, and the firm's expertise comes with the rentals. So they get a whole source of technically advanced people, knowledgeable people that they can use. They don't have to pay for except when they're going to use them.
Which is fascinating, right? That's especially if you're in a mom and pop situation, you're a smaller business. You don't want to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to a company that you've used twice. That's
correct. And if you think about HR payroll a number of years ago, I'm going to age myself here, but if you remember 25, 30 years ago, HR departments, especially payroll, there could be 10, 15 people because they all had to do different, someone had to do the benefits, someone had to do the pay, someone had to do the hourly pay. Everyone here is sort of ADP, right? You farm out your payroll because you're not going to hire payroll people. That's not your business. IT's heading down the same path, in my opinion. That you're not going to hire those people when you just need them for spurts. You would just pay for it when you need it, just like you would like an ADP or a payroll or special reports.
Fantastic. Well, and I guess one of the other questions that I have here is that with this, they can tap into EKS&H's other services, right? If need be.
That's correct. So we have everything from specialty tax to audit to compliance. So all of those things, cybersecurity, all of those things we can. There's somebody right downstairs or right down the hall that I can go to and get the expertise in 5 minutes. There's no need to do any research or drag somebody to try and find somebody. It's right there in the office for them to use.
Yeah. So do you find that a lot of people end up using other services from EKS&H when they go in for this analytics as a service?
Yeah. It's usually state taxes, SALT, which is state and local taxes, become a big issue. States have really kind of lowered the boom a little bit on getting collections, and so that tends to come up quite a bit. That's a service that tends to add on. Again, to hire somebody to do that full time would be expensive. We're able to bring that in as part of the service.
Okay. Right on. So how long has this been available?
We started, I would say our first project was probably last September, October. We had a client that was willing to come on and give us our first shot at it. and we're actually still working with that client. In fact, I was there Friday. It's going really well. They're really pleased. They think it's a fantastic service. The reviews have been really, really good.
Nice. And what does the future look like for this? Are we adding more skills? Are we adding more services underneath this?
We'd like to expand it. So we want to get into logistics. We'd like to get in some operations, general business consulting. We want to expand it. Presently, we have 3 different projects going at the moment in this new offering, which is, for a new offering, is quite good. We're pretty pleased with that. So it's pretty exciting. We've got one for forecasting, actually sales forecasting, one for planning, production planning, and the other one is for the other one is for drawing a blank. Alex, sorry.
That's all right. I'm sure it'll come back to you.
I'll think
you
of it
can
as we
call
go.
me at midnight when you wake up in the middle of the night and it comes back to you. So you have another program as well, the software advertising assessment. Yeah?
So it's software advisory.
Advisory, excuse me.
So one of the challenges, and most people who have done this a while have all done at least one big software purchase in their lives, ERP or a WMS. And most of us recall trying to do it ourselves and then getting about halfway through going, that wasn't a very good idea. I should not have done that myself. So we provide a service, again, for small, medium-sized clients that are looking to upgrade their enterprise system. We do everything from assessing their needs. So we do it a little bit different. Before we even look at software, we go in and assess their needs. What do they need the software to do? What's critical in their day-to-day operations in their business that the software must be able to do? We then take that information, and so we have knowledge of the vendors. We go out to the vendors and go, can you show us how you do these things? And the ones that can, we bring back for full demonstrations. So the clients, the ones that can't, we eliminate. So we save the client a lot of time and money.
Okay.
And they're, again, paying for our expertise. Once we get through that part, we actually bring in and we actually do scripted demonstrations. A lot of times software firms, with all due respect, want to show you the shiny objects, the nice new things they have. And the reality is, if you're buying software, you want to make sure it does the things you need it to do. The shiny objects aren't quite that important. So we make sure that they demonstrate that they can do the things the client really needs in their business. And again, we've identified that, so we know what questions to ask. And we know the software providers. We don't represent any software companies, so we're able to be pretty direct and pretty straightforward with the software suppliers. We then follow that with implementation. What everyone seems to miss on those projects is managing the implementation of one of those big softwares is a full-time job. And generally, everybody at the company has another full-time job, and so they can't really have the time to manage it. And we've done a lot of these, so we know it, we understand it, we understand the steps that have to happen. So we provide that service as well. So we actually divide 3 things. We do an assessment, then we assist with selection, and then we can assist with implementation.
Now, is this just for the software? Is this just a one-time?
Usually it is. I mean, usually if you're going to buy an enterprise system, you're going to keep it for 10, 12, 15 years. I mean, it's a long-term purchase. It's a very important decision, and you want to do it right. So, it's just like if you're doing plumbing, you wouldn't hire an electrician. So if you're doing software selection, you wouldn't hire somebody who does engineering, right?
Right.
You'd hire somebody to do software selection.
Okay. So walk me through. Let's say I'm looking for this, I have my own business, and I need help with finding software. What is the very first thing that you come and do? You assess.
Correct. So we come in and we will, 2 things. We'll interview the staff, people that are going to use the software, and we'll try to get to what we call pain points. What about your present system is really, really painful, taking a lot of time, lots of repeated entries, those kind of things. The second thing I always ask is, can I sell your spreadsheets? Because generally you can tell when a company's outgrown their existing system because there's spreadsheets. Everyone's got their own little private spreadsheet trying to do their business. So we kind of get into that piece and find out what they need the new system to do that the spreadsheets are doing now. And then we automate. We walk through that and try to figure ways that they can automate the spreadsheets into an enterprise system. So that's the first step. The next step is we then take that information and their budget and find the software out there. And there's hundreds, maybe 200, 300 different software packages. And if you're not an educated consumer, you can spend a lot of money. And they can run up into the millions of dollars if you're not careful. And you don't get what you need. It doesn't do the things you want it to. So we help with the selection. And because we're software agnostic, we don't represent any brands. We know the questions to ask. We know where certain software packages are strong. We know where certain ones are weak. So we can guide the client through that process without making a serious mistake.
Okay.
Plus, since we bring a lot of clients to software, they tend to be a little more cooperative with us than they would be a one-time client.
Okay. So going along with that, after you've done the assessment, which I find it intriguing that you actually talk to the staff, right?
I think you have to understand how they use it and what they do with it on an everyday basis, because those are the folks that are going to use it. I rarely see the president of a company going into the ERP system and doing accounting entries. I don't see that. I mean, it's just not how it works.
Right, exactly. So after you've assessed, then you know which kind of programs they're going to need. And from that point, obviously there's a little bit of negotiation here for pricing on this assessment, right?
Correct.
So is it a one package? Do you?
No, we actually do it in 3 phases. So the assessment's an inexpensive first time. This way you're not taking a big risk on us, a big financial risk on us, and we can prove to you that we can do what we say we can do, and we can deliver what we say we can deliver. So we usually bring the assessment in at a reasonable price for the client. That gives them a chance to get to know us and our experience. And if they're unhappy, which hasn't happened yet, if they're unhappy with the assessment, then we'll bid the second phase, which is the selection piece. And we'll rough out when we come in for the assessment. We think that'll cost. And sometimes in the assessment you'll find things that are really particular that'll run the cost up a little bit. But it allows them to get comfortable with us and understand our skills before they pay a lot of money.
Oh, absolutely. It's kind of like a trial and error, right?
Correct.
And you're not paying too much up front. So let me ask you this. You mentioned that nobody's been unhappy yet. I imagine, though, that setting this program as well as the Analytics as a Service program up, you probably had a few snags along the way in creating those programs.
We did. So initially we tried the price. So you asked me how they broke this up. We used to do the assessment and selection as one price, and we scared away a lot of clients. It just seemed like a lot of money. It didn't really make any sense to them. They didn't understand what went into it. So breaking it up really helped. That was one kind of misstep. I would tell you the second misstep was we did interviews, but we didn't really take the time to get to the processes. So now what we do is interviews, and then we do a process analysis. So we walk through their business processes, and we compare the interviews to how the business flows, and then we can tell how far the gap is between the way they run business and the way the systems actually work. And so we can tell them, we can then assess how difficult the implementation is going to be, right? If you have a very clean process that's easily replicated by the computer system, that's an easy implementation. If your process is very manual with lots of exceptions, that's going to be trickier to transition to a computer, so longer implementation.
Okay. Now, after this assessment, have you had any experience with customers saying, you know what, thanks for the assessment, we got it from here?
I've had a couple of clients. We do the assessment. We give them a rough price of what it will cost to put a system in, and they'll pass. They haven't. The ones that want to go on and put one in have hired us for the second round. There are clients that go, you know what? It's based on what you think we can get out of it. It's not worth buying the package.
Interesting.
So the nice part there is they paid us a little bit of money, and they didn't spend a lot of money in a package. They realized, my goodness, we overpaid for something that didn't help us much.
Okay. All right. So it's still, even if they choose not to go with what your assessment, the results of your assessment, they still aren't spending as much money as they would have with just a software company.
Correct.
Okay.
And they're making an educated decision. Is it worth spending $200,000 on a software package to get the improvements that we've listed? And that's a better business decision than trying to go blank, right? Go from nothing.
Absolutely. So, have you had the experience with a customer passing on you and then coming back after?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. So a client came past. It was almost 18 months later. They called me and, look, Joe, your assessment was right on the money. And John, who's my colleague, him and I had worked on the project. So can you and John come back up? And we need to go through the selection. We need to make a change. And so they hired us 18 months later. So yeah, I have had that happen.
Okay. So tell me your favorite success story that's happened so far since you've implemented these. And obviously, we don't need to mention any customer names. Totally fine.
I had a client that was the staff, not particularly the person I was working with directly, but the staff was convinced that a software package couldn't possibly work in their business. It was too unique. It was too special. Just wouldn't work. And so the owner and the person we were dealing with were, let's do the assessment, Joe, and let's see what we come up with. And we did the assessment, and I said, look, there's packages out there that can do this. They might require a bit of modification, but they can do this. And so they agreed to go to step 2. We are presently implementing that system today. It's 12 months ago we started the project, and it's presently going in today, and it does do the things they thought it couldn't do.
Exciting. So I assume you got some good reviews then from them for that.
We did. We got some excellent reviews. They've been a really good reference. And more than a reference, they're just thrilled that we've been able to take a lot of very manual, paper-intensive functions and get them into a system.
Fantastic. So any other great success stories you'd like to share with us?
I've had small firms that, 5, 10 people, $10 million firms that ended up buying a relatively small software package, but were able to get their workers home on time. So one of my clients was, they were doing 65 hours a week just trying to keep up with the books and close the books at the end of the month and those kind of things. So, we put a relatively inexpensive system in, and, I'm sure they're still working 65 hours a week, but doing things that are much more productive than a bunch of accounting journal entries.
Right. Oh, that's lovely. Are there any stories that you would like to share where you've seen some bad business practices that you've come in and completely revamped for them through this service?
Yeah, there are a couple.
Too big of a question?
Yeah, no, there are a couple. So often in these companies, there's a lot of processes that occur in the background that the bosses and the owners don't know.
Okay.
Because obviously their employees are doing their best to meet the customer's needs, and they don't realize how much rework and how much it's costing them. So we've had situations where we've been able to take large chunks of time out by just streamlining the physical business process, not the computer itself, but the actual business process. We have a lot of clients that 4 people check an order, 1, 2, 3, 4, because there's no automatic error checks. So it's 4 times. So if everybody spends 15 minutes, you've wasted an hour. Mm-hmm. And if you're getting 40 orders a week, that's a lot of time checking where a computer could do most of the work, right? Is the address accurate? Is the zip code? That stuff could be easily checked by a computer and save people. The price list or another one that you can put in the system and it can check against them. So that's been a real eye-opener for some small firms. There is definitely some efficiency and money savings to be had.
Oh, I would imagine. Well, and I don't know about you, but a lot of people sometimes have that mindset of making sure a human is double-checking, right? Because computers aren't fail-safe all the time. So do you ever get pushback on that end?
Usually. I mean, there's always people in a firm that that don't want to change, right? If I don't touch it, I don't touch it. But I always tell people, on your cell phone, people use cell phones all the time now, smartphones. They do everything from listen to music to put their shopping list. You get directions. I got lost this morning using it. So everyone's used to using those. What I try and convince people is, why not do the same thing at work?
Yeah.
If you're going to trust systems, automatic banking and electronic credit cards and all things, you should expect the same thing for your system at work. It should be that reliable, and you should trust it and be easy to use. Okay.
So putting some trust in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating. So before you go, how can I get a hold of you, Joe, to help my business?
In Colorado, look up EKS&H. It's EKS&H.com. We're everywhere. It's easy to find us. Just type EKS&H in the browser, and up we come. We're located in the tech center. We also have offices in Fort Collins, Boulder, downtown, small office in San Francisco. So we're all over the Front Range, always willing to help.
Easily accessible.
Yes, we are.
I like it. Thank you so much, Joe. It's been a pleasure having you on today. And stay with us. We will be right back here on Connect and Collaborate. In the meantime, please like and subscribe our YouTube page. We appreciate it. Find this podcast and more at cobrt.com/radio-podcast. We'll be right back.